Hello and welcome back, sports fans. We have a treat for you this week as we are live from Ann Arbor, Michigan, in preparation for a showdown between two of last year's four college football playoff teams with a special guest and a good friend of the podcast. We are live from the Red Roof Inn. Last time I was at a Red Roof Inn, it was in Joplin, Missouri, and I slept with a gun on my chest. It was a hell of a time, and we're here to bring you along for a hell of a time today.
It's time to wake up and check what's brewing. Welcome to Coffee and Cups, your Sunday morning sportscast with your hosts, Chris and Derek.
Alrighty, we are back, like I said, with episode 2 of the Coffee and Cups podcast. I am here with a good friend of the podcast, like I mentioned, standing at 5'9", weighing in at nobody gives a pounds, from Traverse City, Michigan, Mr. Jose Tapia. Jose, tell the crowd how you're feeling today.
Thank you for that interesting introduction. I wouldn't say it's very accurate, but I'm feeling very excited. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. No, very excited. Looking forward to this game. It's definitely been a big one that I've been eyeing for, man, I can't even tell you, countless years, I would say, in the making. But good to be here. Not at the Red Roof Inn, but for sure in Ann Arbor.
Derek, how are things over in your land this week?
Been exciting. Been pretty hype all week. Had some banter going back and forth with some Michigan fans, some old friends that I haven't talked to in a while that reached out, came out of the woodwork just to go through and stoke a little bit of a fire. So it's been just exciting all around Michigan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you guys more. Been very excited about this. I've actually spent a lot of my week doing some quarterback breakdown as well. So watched a lot of film this week on Quinn Ewers, watched a little bit of Michigan film, and then watched some of the other big quarterbacks in the country. So I was looking at Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Raiola, who I'm going to call it now, Arch Manning versus Dylan Raiola for Heisman next year. Just two fantastic quarterbacks. So really excited to watch him play. Watch some Cade Klubnik and some Carson Beck from the Georgia Clemson game. So just a week full of football. And yeah, just really excited to get this weekend on the road. Excited for college game day and big noon kickoff tomorrow. So we'll be live from there doing some good things, but excited for this matchup. And we hope there's an outcome that somebody on the show likes, whether it's us, whether it's you guys. Somebody's going to be happy tomorrow. We'll see who it is. I thought we'd kick it off too with looking at our fantasy drafts. I know we had the Coffee and Cups fantasy draft on Tuesday night. So we have Commissioner Derek here. What were your thoughts on the draft? Did it go how you wanted it to? How's your team looking? How's the league looking? What's the story?
It was good. So obviously everyone came in and participated. It was really nice to kind of see the chat come alive a little bit. Everyone kind of at least put something in there, kind of introduce themselves. You saw a little bit of the banter going back and forth. I would tell you probably after round 8, I was getting to the point in the NFL that I didn't know who I was taking. Got to I think the last 2 picks were suggested picks because I didn't have that kind of depth with who was left out there. So 12 might have been a little bit of a bigger fantasy league, but actually this week it'll be interesting because I play Jose. So I think right now I am winning, but I don't know how that's going to end up.
Oh,
So we shall
Jose
see.
versus Derek in week 1. Oh yeah, I did look at that. Jose, how are you feeling about your roster, and kind of take us through your strategy with the fantasy draft this year?
No, yeah. So yeah, I'm playing Derek this week. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like he's got a better team than me. Absolutely. I think the draft was a little weird for me this year. I've done fantasy for, I don't know, probably not too long, probably like 3 years now. This is my 3rd year doing it. So I'm still relatively new to it. But this year I ended up getting the 12th pick in the draft, which some people will say it can be a gift. Some people can say it's a curse. But, I had the 12th pick. So I feel like I lost a lot of my first round picks that I really wanted. But the benefit to it was that I was able to get back-to-back picks. So it wasn't all too bad. I was able to get Jahmyr Gibbs, who I'm really, really, really excited about this season.
I wanted him.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he puts up some numbers. And I think definitely during last season, he showed that potential to be able to put up some really big numbers. And I've been watching a lot of film. I've been reading up on him and as well as his relationship with Montgomery, which I was a little unsure about at first, just because when Montgomery was brought in last season, I was super pumped about it, and he just showed out every single drive. He's just a workhorse for the Detroit Lions. So now Gibbs showed up, Alabama boy, doesn't really play around. You can tell he's quick. He's got wheels. So I'm hoping he's going to be kind of the star out for me, as well as I would say Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is going to be another one that I have my eye on, and I'm hoping he carries the team a little bit. I will say already week one letdown for me was Travis Kelsey. I got him. I was super pumped about him. I wasted, I would say, what should be an early pick on him for a tight end, and he already let me down. Week one, I think he was projected for like 14, 15 points. He gave me a big old 6. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's just, first game of the season. They wanted to give the ball to new players. I think we all saw that Xavier Worthy got the ball more than I think a lot of people were expecting. But no, it was great. Hopefully I need Kelsey to just pump up those numbers for me, and we'll see how we do.
That's fair. Did you look on ESPN? So ESPN actually sends an email now with your draft grade based
Yep.
on their predictions. What'd you get?
That was a nice C. A nice
Nice.
C, right in the middle of the pack.
I believe Derek, you got a C as well, didn't you? Team
I
Chris over
was,
you,
yeah.
so I got you.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I don't understand how you ended up with an A, but Mike did explain it a little bit, so it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah,
You
I-
just picked the easiest numbers. Whoever was at the top of the board, you said, "Yeah, I'll take them." So
I did
I
not
mean,
actually
drafting's easy that way.
the
But
board.
I
That
get
is
it.
that is not a true statement. I took a high risk, high reward team, right? That's why I have Lamar Jackson, who gave me 26 points.
The dog.
Took CeeDee Lamb with my first pick, number 4 overall. I think he's going to be the best player in fantasy this year. I believe he led fantasy last year in points. Mike Evans is a guaranteed 1,000 yards and 6 to 7 touchdowns at least throughout his entire career. So I feel like I stacked it up pretty good. I wish I would have gotten a better running back, but I mean, Devon A-Chain has the potential to put up some massive numbers, but he also could split a lot of carries with Raheem Mostert in Miami. So again, I think quite a few risk reward ones there. And then I had to snag Caleb Williams in a late round for my backup quarterback. So if Lamar doesn't work out for me, we'll see what Caleb can do.
But he's
You had
backing
the
up
great disappointment.
Wilson, is he not?
Oh,
Oh no, I'm thinking about
Justin Fields.
yeah, I'm thinking about
Don't
Justin
you
Fields.
ever compare Caleb Williams to Justin Fields again. That was
It's
ridiculous.
okay, Jose. I like good quarterbacks too, not Caleb Williams.
Derek said he likes bad quarterbacks. So, yeah, well, without further ado, we'll kind of kick it over to some of our content. So, this week, we really wanted to focus on college football, being that we're at a big college football game, as well as sports fandom in general. I know, obviously, if you're listening to the show, there's a good chance you're a sports fan. Just wanted each of us to talk through some of our experiences as a sports fan, what brought us to sports, what brought us to the teams that we love. So, yeah, I think it's just a cool thing to discuss, and I'd love to hear some of our fans on social media, just kind of see where their sports background is and why they became a fan, and why sports makes them crazy. Derek, you wanna go first?
Yeah, I can. I don't know. I mean, ever since I was a kid, my parents just kind of put me in sports. So as far as I can remember, I was just signed up for a whole bunch of things. I'd say it wasn't until I got into like middle school I started really picking the sports that I was playing. Other than that, I was just kind of getting hustled around. I think it's definitely an ADHD thing. I wouldn't stop moving. So how do you get a break as a parent? You push them somewhere else and make them someone else's problem. So that started off pretty young. I'll be honest, the sport that I played the longest, lacrosse, I started doing that because I did not want to go to class. I wanted to miss English class, and they had a lacrosse meeting
Interesting.
during that hour. So if you went to that meeting, you got to miss class.
Was it like
and
every week or
it was
just
all
one meeting?
No, no, it was just one meeting. It was like, hey, and I was like, I don't want to go to class today. And me and the rest of the outcasts found ourselves in one cafeteria. And then 6 o'clock and a couple nights from there, we met on a field, and most of us continued to play from there. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. But yeah, that's why I started lacrosse. I knew that would get me out of class one day, and I was like, oh, this will probably work.
Interesting. So what brought you to your sports fandom, I guess? I know you're a Browns fan. You kind of have a little bit different taste versus probably the most of the people around you and us in the Midwest. So, like what do you love about the Browns, and what do you love about being a sports fan?
It probably started when I started playing. I would tell you tackle football was kind of the Vince Young era of Texas. So watching that, And then just following Texas throughout, it led me to the Browns because you went and saw Colt McCoy get drafted there. You saw Brady Quinn, some of those guys. So being young, not necessarily knowing the depth, and you're like, man, look at all these great players going to this team. Yeah, they were going to the team because they sucked. So that's why they had all those great picks. But yeah, it just kind of stayed from there. So I mean, watching, Colt McCoy go through there and some of those good guys was obviously a big Johnny Manziel fan coming through, big Baker fan. So obviously you get a lot of great quarterbacks, but yeah, that's kind of where it started young, was just following some of those Texas guys on over. And Vince just had all the hype. At that time I was playing quarterback and he was a quarterback, so he was just fun to watch. So that's really what kind of sparked it all, was he was the guy on the TV and making the highlights.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jose, tell me about your journey into sports, both, as an athlete growing up, or into sports fandom, into your Texas fandom, and some of the other teams you root for.
Yeah, so I would say I wasn't like, I wouldn't say I was in like into got into sports until I would say later. And you hear stories about people being sports fans and from their very young age until whoever knows. I feel like I got into sports when I was in like middle school. That's when like I started playing, football. I played football up until middle school, all the way to high school. And that was really like the only sport that kind of resonated with me, that I kind of revolved around. So that's the one I really followed ultimately all throughout. Once I played in middle school, I was like, damn, I really like this. It kind of took over from there. So being, growing up in Northern Michigan, I would say, the Lions are everywhere. That's kind of like the team that you want to support, that you want to be around. So I started kind of just like familiarizing myself with them, getting to know the history of it. And man, it's great. It's great. The Detroit fan base, I think it's one of those that I feel like can be easily looked over, but it's great though. I don't know. I feel like, can we do a cut?
Yeah, we can get that.
I wasn't prepared for that. I feel like, I don't know. What got me into sports? I don't know. I played sports and I feel like that was really
Dude, I
good.
don't know what fandom meant, so don't feel bad.
The Texas, I don't know. The Texas one was a little bit different for me, I would say, because I was raised in Northern Michigan, though I was born in Texas. I was born in Southern Texas. I would say I was a little small town called Edinburgh. Really, realistically, the city people are going to know most is McAllen, Texas, which is super South Texas. So I was born there, but I moved out and I moved up to Northern Michigan when I was about 3 years old. So I was realistically born there, but raised in Northern Michigan. But I will say though, being born in Texas and I have older siblings and family that grew up there, that Texas like Longhorn symbol, it's a lot more than just a college team when you're down there. It's like, I don't know, I don't want to say a lifestyle, but it's just like you see the logo and it represents a lot more than it does just football. That's Texas. So I feel like I got to know that logo long before I even knew what sports was, I would say. Like everyone was wearing it, it was just around me constantly. So like that is for college football, I would say that is just what I've always known. And like that's the team that I was like embedded in. So like that one was realistically, since I was young all the way up. But like NFL and, professional sports, I would say I taught myself those later on in life.
Interesting. For those of you that can't see, a fly is in my buffalo trace, and he is dead. So I'm going to drink this fly. But yeah, as
There's
far
one way to go, I'd probably choose that.
that's fair, drown in buffalo trace. Yeah, my sports fandom it's weird and it's probably unhealthy. Similar to you guys, was kind of around sports growing up. My brother liked all the Detroit teams. Family is Michigan fans, but I I I really love the chaos and like the stress and anxiety. And so I'll tell people, you'll never catch me at a game where I'm not actively cheering for a team, even if it's a team that I don't care about, because I have to have some sort of like intensity or, some involvement in the game or I don't care. And so that's why last year, Jose and I got the opportunity to go to the Red River rivalry to watch Texas, Oklahoma. And that was like, it's like heaven and hell combined, because obviously, it's the biggest game for OU in Texas. And there's just so much hatred. And I love it so much. And there's only two times in my life where I've turned into a completely different human being at a sporting event. One was a Detroit Red Wings versus Chicago Blackhawks game, and only one person was there to see that. And the other one was last year, Texas OU. I don't know, Jose, if you have anything from last year that was I okay? I don't know.
Yeah. I think you were. I think you were about as okay as you could have been, given the scenario and the outcome. And I think I agree with you absolutely about like the chaos of it all. It's something that is. It's almost like it's addicting. You're like, I hate this in the scenario, but afterwards you're like, I can't wait to do that again.
Yeah.
It's one of those crazy things. But I don't know. I feel like I just told you before doing this podcast that going back to Red River is just it's a painful memory just because it was so much positive, but also so much negative all in one day. It was quite the experience.
Yeah, I talked about going to Red River again this year with my girlfriend, and she's a very sweet, sweet human being. And I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if I want you to see that side of me. Like that's we've been through a lot, and we'll go through a lot, forever. But that wasn't something that I was ready for really anybody to see. So she'll be here with me tomorrow at the game, and I'll be as good as possible. But yeah, I don't know, Derek. Do you have anything like that, or are you more of a calm fan? I feel like you're a calm
Yeah, I
fan.
wouldn't. Yeah, yeah, I don't really. I'm not one that's gonna like stand up and jump. And when you get all those people that are like celebrating around you, it's kind of like a just, oh yeah, cool, that was great. But I don't know. I'm that way with like concerts and everything too. Like I don't go crazy there either. Like I'm a little bit more to myself there. Um, so yeah, it's a fair assessment.
If you could go back and change one sporting moment in your life, what would it be? Derek, you can go first. Trying to think,
So
if there's one moment
I
that
don't
just
remember
sticks in
what
your
year it
mind.
was. Yeah, I don't remember what year it was. It was probably our sophomore year of college. It was Browns, Ravens, Thursday night football. I was in Cleveland, and on the last play of the game, there was a kick return for a touchdown in the end zone that I was sitting in the dog
Ooh,
pound
tough.
to have the Browns lose the game. So, yeah, I went with my roommate and one of our buddies that were on the football team. And yeah, that was tough to see the Browns winning that whole game. Not obviously a very successful franchise. I mean, that was when tickets were like $40 for the 50-yard line. And to see that happen when you drive all the way down from Adrian was rough. But cool moment, I guess, to see, but not in the ending that you want.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of what happened to us last year at Red River. But would that be the one you would change, Jose, or what do you got?
I would say I have 3 that are coming off the
Okay.
top of my head right now. Most recently would be actually drafting Xavier Worthy on my fantasy team because I think that he's gonna be an absolute dog this season. If I could go back and change that, I would right now.
Fair, fair.
Past that, it would be Lions not losing in the playoffs this past season. If I think that it was just everything was written so perfectly that I think last year we definitely had the potential to bring it all home. And then yeah, past that, it's definitely the Red River outcome.
I'm gonna let you in a secret. I think I cursed Detroit last year
Why? Why do you say that to
because
me?
I hate Michigan sports. And I actually, in the middle of that game, when they were up, I was like, good for Detroit, man. I actually started cheering for him at like halftime, and they just kind of shit the bucket for the rest of the game. So
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been great.
I think mine and this one will stick with me forever because it's one play that kept the Chicago Blackhawks from three-peating as Stanley Cup champions. So 2014, graduating high school. It's the day of graduation, and we have this thing called Ultimate Party. So right after graduation, we get on a bus, we drive to somewhere we don't know. It ended up being some arcade. And game 7 of the Western Conference Finals is on. While we're on the bus, I'm watching it. Game goes into overtime. I believe it goes into double overtime. And I just remember Alec Martinez taking a shot from the point. It hits a Blackhawks player and takes some crazy bounce and just loops over Corey Crawford's shoulder. And then the Kings win it. It's a tough one. And they went on to just absolutely steamroll the New York Rangers in the finals. And obviously, Chicago won the cup in 13 and 15. So, that could have been one of the greatest runs in hockey history since thinking of like the 80s Oilers or the 70s Canadians. So that one was definitely tough for me. That one, and obviously Red River last year, because not only does it hurt losing to Oklahoma like that, obviously when you pay a bunch of money to go just be emotionally abused and
Yeah.
dead after that, it's
I mean, it was a whole weekend. It was just so much commitment for not to pay off that I felt like was there.
yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Well, we'll kick it right into the Bush League Play of the Week. Just a reminder that this is in no way, shape, or form affiliated with Anheuser-Busch or Bush Light, but Jose loves Bush Light. Derek's more of a Michelob guy, is what it is.
Give me
Um,
that bush latte.
We'll get right into it. If you've seen the clip on our Instagram story already, if not, it is in the link wherever you're streaming this podcast. But yeah, basically, it is a clip from the Florida State Boston College game earlier this week, and I wanted to frame it as a DBs will celebrate anything moment because you all know DBs will celebrate anything, even if they didn't do anything. He's number 4, but it turns out he's a defensive end. So we'll walk you through the video. Basically, catch over the middle, an actual completion by DJU. And this defensive end stands up the receiver, can't get him on the ground, so he doesn't get the tackle, but he stands him up until the forward progress is gone. So defensive end can't tackle the receiver, kind of weak. He then proceeds to get a one arm push by the offensive lineman from Florida State and throws a LeBron level flop, squirming like a damn fish out of water on the ground. And then he gets the flag and he gets up and starts grittying. So it's just like, I don't know. It's the ultimate combination of disrespect for everything. And it's hilarious. And I love it and I hate it. And defensive players will celebrate anything. What's your take on it, Derek? I don't know. I couldn't tell if I was annoyed or I loved it.
At what point is that taunting?
Him gritty. That's what I thought too, is like it would
Right?
be hilarious. It would add to the Bush League if he draws the flag, gritties, and then gets a flag for gritty. And like, that would have been
Yeah.
I was actually kind of surprised that he didn't get the flag. I think he stopped like a little bit halfway gritty. I mean, he stopped because I think he knew that the flag was coming. He's like, I can't do that.
it was a hell of a
I
flap. I don't know.
He was just
But
like,
I mean,
"Oh, fell on the ground," and then gets up and said, "Oh, yeah," and he was just sitting there celebrating, like, yeah, I mean, but I'm surprised it's not a taunting call. I really am, um, just with the way that things are going,
Yeah,
but hey, let him have fun.
it's fair.
I was I feel like I played D end for, a little bit, like middle school through like freshman year. I played D end, okay? I wasn't bad either. But I feel like when you're on the defense, you gotta find those things to celebrate. You don't catch balls, you don't make the big plays, you don't do this, that. So every time you make a stop, you stop from especially like a key third play down or something like that, you stop it, you gotta celebrate.
Do you think? Do you think he got some shit from his teammates back in the locker room? You think they
No,
loved
I
it?
bet they were
You think
like,
they loved it?
yeah, they loved it. They for sure loved it.
That's. I mean, yeah, he drew the penalty. He got the stop. It is what it is. But yeah, that one was just a wild one to me. I don't know how I feel about that. But that will wrap it up for our week 2 segment of Bush League Highlight of the Week. We'll kick it on over next to college football talk, which is what we're all here for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll go through some of the week 1 games and week 2 games and get you prepped for the weekend. I think we'll start off with our upset alert picks from the week 1 games.
No comment.
No
Yeah, that
comment.
didn't go well.
I mean, it didn't go well
Yeah,
for either of
it
us. Miami won by 30. The good news is I picked Miami to be in the playoffs, so like in the long run, I feel fine about that. I didn't want them to lose, but I thought maybe there was a chance. If you didn't see, the Florida fans have started a GoFundMe to pay Billy Napier's buyout. So if you want to contribute to Billy Napier getting fired, you can go do that. I don't know what the website is. I'm not going to share it either, but you can contribute to his buyout if you'd like to. I think A&M did something similar for Jimbo Fisher last year as well.
Yeah.
So the fans are getting
It's just
involved.
crazy to see teams do that is one, it's wild, but it kind of goes into almost the crowdfunding that we were talking about before. This one's probably just maybe a program positive impact, but not a positive impact for the person there. But I mean, switching it back to just the upsets, I guess. I didn't expect Klubnik to have a roughly 41 QBR with 188 total yards of offense there versus 447 yards from Georgia. I thought that they would come out with a little bit more power, but maybe Dabo is just losing his talent on picking these quarterbacks because we also saw his old quarterback there at Florida State and he wasn't doing too hot either. So Dabo might just be losing a little bit.
Yeah, I know it was something we wanted to touch on later, but a stat I saw was that Clemson has not started a transfer in 7 years, right? And so like first is first. I love that Dabo is committed to what he does. He's committed to developing his players, but at what point is the University of Clemson gonna just let this team keep going 8-4 because Dabo refuses to take transfers or roll out the big NIL bucks? Like, there's a fine line between I love the principles that Dabo believes in and sticks to in a world where nobody sticks to their principles. But it's a what have you done for me lately game. Nobody cares about his 2 national championships at this point, besides the guys that were on the team.
So actually, on that topic there, when we talk about NIL dollars, they are using them and they are bringing players in with them. And I say that in the fact that I didn't record it or bring down any of the actual stats or anything like that with me. But I read an article yesterday, and I want to say that Clemson is top 15, maybe top 12 for NIL money used. And we're talking over 220 million that they're using. So I mean, I could probably find it in there, but I
Yeah,
would just
check
say it's
that
out
because
there.
I surprised me if they're one of the top NIL
They are.
spend.
Now,
But I
I mean,
think
it's not as close. I mean, Texas is north of 500, so
yeah, and
I mean,
you gotta hit
they're
the
not
transfer
crazy
portal
high.
too now, right? Like you have to hit the transfer portal. And I mean, if you don't, it goes back to what we talked about last week, where in sports like hockey, you see that kind of cyclical mentality of schools that don't recruit guys that are instantly ready and they develop them. And then, they'll go on a hell of a run for 2 years and then they'll get back and rebuild a little bit. And then they'll go on a hell of a run for a couple of years. And so I think that's just a lot harder to do in college football because there's a lot more pressure. There's boosters that'll get you thrown to the street very quickly if they don't think you're doing what's right for the university. So I just don't know.
It's tough to say. I mean, what I will tell you is I think it's gonna become a point where he's gonna have to put morals aside, and in order to stay, he's gonna have to get aggressive with it and start going into the transfer. But what I will tell you is he's not the only one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see I mean, Nebraska's out there doing pretty similar things. Obviously, the expectation's just different, right? But he's not the only one doing that.
Yeah. No, I mean that's completely fair. I think just the standard at Clemson right now is so much higher and they're just not living up to it. So I hope he gets turned around. I love Dabo. I think Cade Klubnik's a really good quarterback. I watched the film, the breakdown of him individually and Carson Beck individually, and he didn't have a terrible game. I mean, obviously we know Georgia is a top 2 or 3 defense. So I mean, we knew he wasn't going to come out and do something crazy, but yeah, did struggle a bit. So we'll see where they go from there. The ACC is wide open right now. Florida State was probably supposed to be the best in the conference, and they're sitting at 0-2. Uh, Clemson, obviously, it's Georgia, but they're still sitting at 0-1. I mean, it is wide open, and I'm gonna give a quick plug for SMU, who I thought was maybe a playoff dark horse. Then I got really nervous after their week 1 game, but somebody's got to come from the ACC, and probably at least 2 teams from the ACC. I don't know, man. I think they could be one of them. So we'll see what's going on there. I don't know what's going on with Florida State. I don't know. Jose, did you get to watch any of that game, that Florida State game?
No, I didn't. But I saw the highlights of it, and yeah, I just feel like uh, I don't want this to be a hot take, but I think Florida State is just gonna be like the biggest. They might be one of the biggest busts this year. They are coming off such a high, playoff ranking last year. They made it to what they
They were in the conference championship. They went undefeated and then got left out of the playoff because
right, but then there was like
yeah,
this big like debate, and I know they were especially, as you should be, they were pissed off because they thought they should be higher up, and I think there was a big debate over their quarterback if he was even able to perform at that level. And I think now we're seeing the results of it.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah. Yeah, I don't wish anything bad upon Florida State, but they're in serious trouble right now. Obviously, I think that's probably the most obvious
Yeah.
thing we could
Yeah.
say is that they're in trouble. Um, yeah, on that, I know I had Miami on upset alert as well, and they handled business. Not too much to see there. I thought Florida was going to be a little better this year. I thought Miami was maybe a little overrated, and I think neither of those things were true. So we'll see. Again, Miami was one that I had in my college football playoff, so I didn't want them to lose, but I thought there was a chance going into the swamp. Florida team with a chip on their shoulder, but that turned out to be absolute hogwash. And on the
To
topic of hogwash, oh, go ahead, Derek.
to go from I mean, even week 1, I mean, obviously it was all week 1. They played 2 games in that week, but to fall from 10 to not even receiving votes is probably one of the largest, I would say, I mean, that's got to be one of the largest downfalls in probably since playoff history. I mean, since we've started the playoffs, I mean, that's just a massive, massive downfall. I mean, there's nobody on that committee right now that thinks that they can be competitive, which is
No, they might
crazy
as
to think
well
about from where they were.
they
Like,
might as well sit DJU and find their quarterback for next year. And that sounds bad, but I don't even know if they win 10 straight, because the issue is not only are they 0-2, they were 2 conference games, correct?
right,
Yeah,
right.
like, they're 0-2 in conference, and I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but with the reformation of the conferences, none of the Power 4 have divisions now, so it's just the top 2 teams in each of the Power 4 conferences going to conference championship, so there's no, like, Iowa just gets to hang around there and beat up on Northwestern and a bunch of turds in the Big Ten, whatever side that is, and then Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State duke it out, and only one of those 4 gets to go to the conference championship. So it's best on best now. And so, I mean, Florida State is mail it in, boys. Play for some pride, but
That's That's the good thing about college, to be honest with you. There's no tanking, right? I mean, any pro team that would see a downfall like this, you'd be looking at a tanking season. So that's kind of a nice thing is that they're gonna stay competitive. They're gonna try and more than likely, I mean, compete, but I mean, they're still gonna play in the now, right? They're not gonna be like, hey, we're gonna go through it and lose these games. So they're gonna play who they think's gonna win out there now rather than necessarily probably looking forward into next year because of how early we are in the season. I would say, towards that to the end of the year, the end of the season mark, when it's clear as day they're not going to make a bowl game, they will probably start to make it a little bit more of a quarterback battle. But I'm more interested to see how many players leave this year. You saw a lot of kids coming in,
yeah.
a lot of Alabama kids coming in, thinking that, this is going to be a new powerhouse. And it's showing to be almost anything but that right now. So it'll be interesting to see what that transfer portal looks like and what Norvell can do to try and keep these players. I mean, how do you get players to be bought in after just some of the embarrassing showings they've had?
Yeah. Well, on the note of leagues that are wide open, but maybe from another reason, the SEC is wide open and it is absolutely stacked. What do you have on the SEC for us?
So going through, I think I put one of our good little tips down in here. So out of the SEC conference this coming year, or this last, I shouldn't say this coming, this last week, there were two just standout games, right? I mean, in the end of the day, you had bullies beating up on little kids. I mean, for the majority of it, aside from what we saw with LSU, it was mainly just bullies beating up on the little kids. The SEC outscored their opponents 733 to 156 in week 1. I think the closest conference outside of the SEC there scored like 655 points, I want to say. So, I mean, their offenses are clicking, they're starting hot, which is what we expect from an SEC conference there, as well as what we're expecting from these SEC teams. Biggest thing that I want to talk about, because it's probably the only relevant game that we actually had, is LSU and USC. So, I kind of want to spend my game in a weird portion of it, and mainly kind of looking at just, I mean, and Brian Kelly, right? At the end of the game, or the end of the day, we know that was a great game, and both teams just competed. I mean, that was until the very end. They were competing. You saw spurts of great offenses. You saw spurts of great defenses. The biggest thing I want to look at, and it's not to be meant as like a hot take, but I don't know if you caught the press conference after with Brian Kelly slamming at the table.
I did not.
Um, so LSU has not won a season opening game since 2019. Um, Not necessarily a shocker. I mean, I believe it's the last 2 years they've played Florida State, which we knew was a good program. The kind of crazy thing is this stat has stemmed further than Brian Kelly. I want to say he came in maybe 2000 and maybe 2022 is when Kelly signed his 10-year contract.
Yeah, I believe it was 2022 was his first year, and then last year and now this year.
Yeah. So they ended up asking him kind of like what's it going to take, and so he ended up getting pretty frustrated in the post conference meeting, I guess, if you will, or press conference, and ended up slamming it on the table and saying that these guys think that they got it won. Basically, the guys quit playing at the end of the game, right? I mean, what you see with typically some more cockier, I guess you could say higher caliber athletes. But I guess where I'm going with all of this is if things keep up like this, and I mean, you go through and you look at Brian Kelly, he's 20-7 at LSU. Uh, losing opening season games, obviously to ranked opponents, but does he make it through a 10-year contract? I mean, this is a school that has no trouble with NIL. It has no trouble with the swagger of college football, the speed of it. I mean, this is a talented, not only roster, but just from the ground up in recruiting.
No, I tell you,
How do you keep the
Brian
interest
Kelly
there?
does not last 10 years. I'll bet Jose's bonus this year that Brian Kelly does not make it through 10 years at LSU. There's no way.
I mean, 27 is not a great record for some of the talent that he's had. And going through and looking at that, I mean, they don't win late in the season, and that's kind of some of the biggest struggles there. And USC showed that. I mean, LSU was pretty dominant pretty early on, and USC ended up coming back on that. And I was happy about it. I mean, I had USC on that, and that was an upset I was hoping for monetary wise, but it was interesting.
Hey, as long as it lines your pockets, that's all that matters, man. Yeah, I spent a lot of focus on the Big Ten this past week. Some things I wanted to see from some certain teams. A lot of slow starts in the Big Ten. Not maybe as concerning as some people may be on this one, but Oregon, Michigan, and Wisconsin all had very narrow wins against Idaho, Fresno State, and Western Michigan, respectively. Shout out to the Broncos for almost pulling off that upset. But slow starts, I don't think anything too crazy to worry about. I think we make too much of these early season games because especially against these low opponents and especially when you have big opponents coming up, I especially look at Michigan, right? They got Fresno State right off the bat, and then they got Texas coming to town. So they're going to run a pretty vanilla offense, right? Not saying the effort isn't going to be there or shouldn't be there, but they're not going to pull out all the tricks. They're not going to be throwing double passes, doing crazy stuff. And I think you saw the same thing from most of the big schools that played smaller schools the first week. They were successful. They had big plays, but they weren't, doing anything too crazy. So nothing too concerning there. The game that I was really intrigued in was Nebraska against UTEP. And obviously Nebraska won. They won 40-7. Dylan Raiola is a monster. So he is the son of former Detroit Lions offensive lineman Dominic Raiola. And he's obviously a very hyped up recruit, originally committed to Georgia. And then he ended up going to Nebraska where he has some family ties. But this kid is legit. So if you haven't got a chance to watch some of his film breakdown, I suggest anybody go do that. Didn't put up any eye-popping numbers. Had just over 200 yards. I think 238, a couple of touchdowns, no picks. But he's so calm in the pocket. His feet are always where they need to be. He makes off-platform throws. He's athletic enough to get out of the pocket. And obviously, people are making things because he trains with Patrick Mahomes' trainer. And he wears number 15. So people want to make that. Obviously, don't want to go that far, but like I said in the intro, this kid is good, and he'll be challenging for some awards in the next couple of years. Moving on to another one that I thought was going to be closer, I almost wanted to have an upset pick for was Penn State versus West Virginia, and I thought West Virginia was going to keep that one close, especially with as much as they put into it. I know you had mentioned they closed down school, trying to get all the students there and everything, but Penn State kind of took it to them, and I think I have Penn State in my playoffs. So again, another one where I wanted that Penn State to win, but I wouldn't have been surprised if West Virginia put up a pretty good fight. They didn't as much as I thought. So yeah, not sure there. Did you have something on that, Derek? I'm sorry.
Not on Penn State, but I have questions on Raiola. So I haven't watched him, didn't spend any time going through and even seeing highlights for this week. The only thing I've seen on him is obviously the Patrick Mahomes comparison, right? So says he's had the haircut for, I think, since like Pee Wee or whatever like that, right? That's, I guess, not important, but it's the only news I've seen. Is he a true redshirt?
What do you mean?
I say by redshirt. Is he a true freshman?
Yeah. Yeah. He just enrolled this spring.
And so you made the claim prior. You think he's competing for a Heisman next year
Next year. Yeah.
in Nebraska?
Yeah. There's some people,
Who else is he bringing?
some educated people, not me, but some educated people that have Nebraska as a playoff dark horse this year, which I think is absolutely nuts, especially when you look at the Big Ten. But I'm telling you, watch this kid's film. Don't just go watch the highlight tape. Watch his film. He's going to be something special. So doubt me at
All
your
right.
own risk. I'll be
I'm
putting in a
not saying I'm going to
future.
doubt you, but I'm trying to look at Nebraska's relevance in the Big Ten in the last probably 4 years. And then we're going to bring in this freshman and we're going to say he's going to compete for a Heisman as well as he's going to make Nebraska bowl relevant. I shouldn't say bowl relevant because they've been in bowls, but I mean, I guess playoff relevant.
Yeah, it's a tall task, but I think Matt Rule, you saw his track record at Baylor, doing some great things with them at a school that's not necessarily known for being, tip top of the Big 12. So I don't think it's out of the question, but I just think this kid is incredibly talented. So I'm excited to see. I could be completely wrong, but he looks the part right off the bat.
It's because he looks like
Moving
Mahomes.
moving down the, he does look like Mahomes. That's all that matters.
That's you.
All that matters. He looks like Patrick Mahomes and he trains with his trainer. Sign the check, put him in the NFL. I don't care. Next one is Michigan State. And I didn't even want to touch on this one, but I'm going to touch on it because if you saw Aiden Childs, the transfer quarterback from Oregon State, the reporters were asking him about how he's feeling going into the first game and this and that. And instead of answering the question, he just said, bet the over, thinking they were going to score a whole ton of points. And I'm here to bring you this earth-shattering stat line from Aiden Childs: 10 for 24, 114 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in a 6-point win over, I don't even know who the hell they played anymore.
Ooh, Michigan State?
Who did they play? I don't even remember.
Oh, wasn't it Florida? No,
Yeah,
that was
Florida
Michigan.
Atlantic.
Florida
Shout out
Atlantic.
to Tom Herman in Florida Atlantic. But I think he'll be good. But just to come out your first game at a new school, your first start ever, you weren't even a starter before, just say bet the over in your press conference, and then you put a stat line like that. Now, he did own up to it in the post-game press conference, so I'll give him props for that. He owned up to it. He said, I got to be better. It starts with me. We'll get back to practice this week, and we'll put out a better showing next week. So I hope they do. I think he's talented, but I just had to call that out because he was very adamant that they were going to do some big things on offense in the first game. So yeah, that's all I got on the Big Ten, man. Sorry for that rant. We'll kick it over
No,
to
I
some
think it's funny.
more somber news in the Big 12, where nobody's great, but everybody's honestly pretty damn good. So I think it's another wide open conference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Coming over to week 2, though, we'll see if that kind of carries over. I picked out some matchups that I'm personally interested in seeing. We got Baylor versus Utah. I think that'll actually probably be a decent game to watch. I'm gonna say Utah is probably gonna pull ahead on that one. And Houston versus OU. I'm going Houston. I'm going Houston. I cannot, in good faith, say OU is gonna even win in that game.
Are we going to put money on that? Are we going to hit the FanDuel? Are we going to double down on that pick?
I will say Houston's gonna take it.
What you got, Derek?
So, at what point did Houston fall off, though? Like, wait a minute. Like, we skipped back 4 years ago. They were a decent team.
Yeah, I mean,
Did
even
NIL just put them out?
even like 2 years ago, they were in the conference championship against Cincinnati the year Cincinnati went to the playoffs.
Right. So, at what point did they fall off?
Probably NIL time, yeah, the last 2 years or so.
Okay. I will tell you if you want to know the odds. I will let you guys know what those odds are.
Yeah,
And
hit me
how
with
we're
those
looking.
odds. I would imagine it's got to be
Oh.
at least a 20-point line.
I looked at it earlier and I want to say I was going to include it. So, yeah, 27.5.
27.5. You going to bet the line on that, Jose?
I'm doing it. I
All right.
cannot in good faith even come near to OU. So I'm gonna do it.
Everyone in the comments,
It's plus
Hold Jose accountable.
2,000 for Houston.
Please.
plus 2,000. Jose is buying everybody dinner.
Hey, you
as
make your
soon as-
bed, you lay in it, okay?
I can appreciate that. Anything else going on in the Big 12 this week?
I would say those are my highlights personally. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to it.
No, I think I don't know if you would consider it an upset, but I was kind of thinking on the upset alert end. Would you consider Nebraska beating Colorado an upset at this point? I don't know. What's the line on that one, Derek? If you got the odds up right
I
now?
wouldn't say that's going to be. I don't know because, I mean, what's the
how much is
committee and what's
actual?
everyone looking at for Dylan?
Yeah, well, and it's also like how much of Colorado is hype and how much is the substance? Because there's some people that are very realistic on Colorado. There's some people that are very high and some people that are very low. So it's hard to gauge them. Like I saw a legitimate ESPN host say something about them in the college football playoff this year, and then I've seen people say that they're going to go 4-8 again. So I really don't know, but I think Nebraska is going to come out with that one on the Big Ten side. While Derek's looking that up, any upset alerts for you this week, Jose?
I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for that one.
That's all right. Yeah, I think on my end, I'll tell you my upset alerts. Um, Iowa State will beat Iowa. I just think Iowa's tired of this charade that is the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I'm taking Iowa State over Iowa, and then I'm taking Boise State over Oregon for my upset alert. Another team that I have in my playoffs, similar to Miami last week, but I'm taking Boise State.
That's absurd.
Ashton Jeanty, don't know how to pronounce his name, put up 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, it was definitely a school record, but it was absurd.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a low odds, but if I have to put somebody on upset alert, it's Iowa who's going to lose and Oregon who I don't know.
Not an
All
upset.
right, so
not
I
an,
have.
go ahead. Oh, not an upset alert, but I do want to chime back in onto the Colorado-Nebraska game. I feel like that's going to be a good one to watch. I should have put that one down on my notes, but I feel like they're both really well. Nebraska, it just has that kind of ethos for the team where they're corn. I don't want to say cornbread, but cornbread. They're big boy husky. Like they always have they always have a good line, O line or D line, because they're just some big boys over there. But I will say though that like Colorado has cemented itself on on a radar list. You always got to watch them. You always got to kind of keep an eye on them. Obviously, the prime effect, it's a real thing. I do believe in it, and I think I'm gonna go with Colorado on it. I think they're gonna show out.
Hey, Jose and Kid Rock, best buddies. They both like big corn-fed Midwestern bros.
Tell me I'm wrong though. Tell me I'm wrong.
I don't know, man. I don't know what they do out there in Nebraska.
They
You got
eat
the-
corn.
You got the line, Derek?
Yeah, so we have a favorite of Nebraska by 6.5. I mean, that's where we're at. With 6.5 right there. Nebraska is one or minus 220 for the favorite there for the money line, but which actually surprises me. I guess the thing that
That's not an
surprises me
upset
kind
at all.
of
Then. So Jose's picking the upset with Colorado winning. Then I guess.
yeah. So I guess what surprises me though is they have the over under at 55.5. So
Okay.
they think these teams are gonna suck at defense.
Yeah, I do get out
Just need a
55 and a
reason.
half. I mean,
Yeah,
that's fair. Interesting.
so actually, before we move on from this game,
Yeah.
I want to go through and talk about. Did you see the snap count of Travis Hunter?
No, what did he play last week? I'm sure it was something stupid. He was averaging over 100.
I want to say he was out 4 plays.
No way.
4 plays for
Missed
total
4
offense. and
plays the
defense.
entire game.
Yeah, he.
Yeah, Travis Hunter is absurd. Is anybody challenging him for number 1 pick? Like, I don't. Who else is going number 1 pick right now?
He took 129 total snaps. He took 52
Holy.
snaps as a wide receiver, 49 snaps as a slot cornerback, and 11 snaps as a slot wide receiver, 5 as a free safety.
That's insane. That makes
129 total snaps. I mean, at what point is this guy almost more of Deion's kid than Deion's kids?
true.
I'm
Hey,
going to be serious.
just put Shiloh up for adoption and adopt Travis Hunter. That's pretty much what they've done.
Exactly. Jeez, oh, Pete's the dog in this kid is crazy, and he did it last year too.
Do you think he's a DB or a receiver at the next level? You can't. He's not going to play both ways. Is he receiver or
DB.
DB?
He's got the attitude to play DB. He really does.
I thought so too, and then I watched his touchdowns. I don't know if you saw that last touchdown, but he's just absurd. I don't know. It's tough.
What's his
Yeah, but then imagine.
how big is this guy? Is he
I mean, he's skinny. He's like 6'2", maybe 170-ish. You can stat check me on that, but I mean, he's a lean kid.
So Travis Hunter is 6'1",
receiver,
185.
He don't look 185.
But what I will tell you, and what surprised, and I guess my comment based off of you saying like watching him catch, right? He knows he's one of the only like true kind of. I shouldn't say true. He knows he's the main weapon of Colorado, right? So I'm going to look at the energy exerted on those offensive plays versus the energy exerted maybe when he's playing cornerback or safety. And you take him off the field, you give him that break. He is probably almost. He's going to resemble Diggs a little bit more as a cornerback. Where I think he's going to try and jump routes, and I think he's going to try and pick more balls. I just think he
Yeah.
conserves energy because he knows offense is where he's needed.
Yeah, I mean, he's a true throwback. You look at the guys that have done it both ways. I know Michigan had a couple of them, with Desmond Howard and Charles Woodson that, maybe not as much offense and defense, but definitely, played some defense, some special teams, time and, here and there at receiver. But this dude's making it look like, I mean, high school. It's almost like a senior on a JV team in high school that's just like playing both ways every snap and dominating a bunch of kids. And then you look and he's 21 years old. He's a true junior, I believe. Like I, as much as Colorado frustrates me, and I can't not root for Travis Hunter because he's one of the most special athletes I've seen in a long, long time.
Get it on record that Chris is a prime effect believer.
No, give me some of those sunglasses. I'll rock those shades.
Did you see how much those sunglasses, like their sales have spiked?
Oh
The
yeah,
blenders. Dude, they've gone crazy.
yeah, probably like 100 times.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
But so what's that going to mean for next year? I mean, are you going to be a Cowboys fan when Dion heads up to the Cowboys?
Hell no. I will not be a Cowboys fan ever or a Dion fan. He's done.
Okay. Got it.
What do you have anything other than on your upset radar this weekend? I know again, not a ton of big games, but
I did, and I made notes. I just don't know where they went because I did pick yes. So I want to say, yeah, I have NC State and Tennessee playing. So it's probably the only ranked game I think that's actually going on in the SEC this weekend. But I guess I can't classify it as an upset because I have Tennessee winning that about 42 to 17 on that. The teams haven't played since 2012, but I just can't imagine Tennessee drops this one.
yeah, Nico Amaliava. I watched his film this week too. That dude can spin the damn football. I love I love the
How far
quarterback
can they
play.
take it?
To the playoff.
You think so? You think they can make 1-12?
I think they can. I think it's tough, and we'll get into this with our college football playoff predictions. But I went through and I ranked the conferences top to bottom by how good the teams were, and then I put the strength of schedule in, right. And so you'll see like the SEC, where I have Texas ahead of Ole Miss, and I have Oklahoma again ahead of Missouri, but Missouri has the 64th hardest schedule in the country, whereas OU has the 5th hardest schedule in the country. So I think I like OU's roster better. I really like Jackson Arnold. It kills me to say, but I think there's just a better path for Missouri there. And so I think it probably falls into one of those things where I don't think Tennessee's schedule is as hard as some of the other ones. Georgia's the 9th hardest. Florida's the 1st hardest. Bama is the 11th hardest in the country. And so I think they might have an easier route to sneak in. And I think the SEC puts in a minimum of 4 teams, if not 5. So if you can get in there, man, you don't have to get to the conference championship. You just got to be a 2 to 3 loss team in the SEC. And I think that's doable for them. We'll
So
see.
let's remember I mean, I want to kick it back because they were a good team last year, but they fell apart.
Yeah.
They went 4-4. They went 4-4 to go 9-4 in the season. And we're talking losing to obviously Bama, obviously losing to Georgia, but losing to Missouri 7-36.
Yeah. Joe Milton was
Like,
not
what do
it.
you right? Like, what?
Well, they had Joe Milton last year. I know they obviously had Hendon Hooker the year before, where they were like college football playoff
Yeah.
contenders, beat Bama, and then Joe Milton was supposed to be fantastic as well, and just didn't turn out that way. They struggled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because to barely beat a Kentucky team and to go out there and to lose to a Missouri team, that's just not playoff contention. But obviously it's a different roster this year. But yeah, my biggest concern is, can they stay strong throughout the year? Because they've fallen apart and crumbled in the last couple towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
They don't have the longevity.
Yeah, I think top to bottom, they don't have that roster, but I love Josh Heupel, what he's doing there, and I love Nico Amaliava. And so, if you're going to have 2 people be absolute monsters, if it's your head coach and your quarterback, that sets you up a lot better than if it's, an offensive lineman. So we'll see. I think they're going to be really good. Probably don't make it in the playoff, but I think Tennessee's a really good team, and Nico Amaliava is going to have a couple monster years.
Little Rocky Top.
Yeah, that's fair.
Rocky
Look at
Top.
these.
Oh
Oh,
shoot.
that's
Well,
yeah.
we'll keep it going with the college football stuff. Got through the recaps, but now we want to talk about the game at hand that we're watching tomorrow.
Wait, did you drink
Michigan
that fly yet?
versus Texas. Yeah, I drank the fly like half an hour ago.
It's like a
Yeah,
Jose
he's gonna
Cuervo
hold on to
worm.
that
You're just
drink
gonna get
for a
messed up.
good. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and say 45, 50 minutes.
Everybody needs a
Warm.
babysitter,
It's piss warm
even
right
drinks.
I like warm whiskey. Yeah, what do you guys have on initial thoughts for the Texas Michigan game tomorrow? Jose, you want a kicker?
Yeah, sure. As I've already said, I'm just so excited. I've been thinking about this game for legitimately years. I think it was, I don't know. I was trying to tell Chris earlier when this game was announced. I'll put a lot of money on it. I'm sure it was like 2015, 2016, something like that. This game was announced a long time ago, and I've been looking forward to it for a long time. I have a buddy back home. He's a diehard Michigan fan. I've been a diehard Texas fan for a long time, and it's just like two big titans coming together. And it's gonna be a fight, dude. I'm hoping it's a fight. I'm hoping it's gonna be just really just smash mouth football, running down the middle. We'll see what happens. I think that's exactly what both teams are gonna do. Michigan's gonna try to run it. We will run it, and we're gonna be more successful. That is what's gonna happen.
Oh, speaking
Um,
into existence.
I think that the thing to watch out for is gonna be the Michigan defense. I think that Michigan, without a doubt, has a really, really respectable defense, and we're gonna have to show out. We're gonna have to see what we can do against it. Running, whether that means running outside. I think we're gonna have to look away from running the ball down the middle because they do have some really big boys on the D line that we do not want to play with. But we'll see. I am very confident going into this game that I think it's gonna have a better outcome than the Red rivalry that I went to last time. And yeah, we will see.
Derek,
So on
what's
that,
your initial
and that,
take?
my biggest question for the two of you is, why are the two of you going after going to the Red River? And I mean, arguably the reason they lost.
I mean, we could have been the reason they lost. I don't know. We're gonna pretend that we weren't, and we're trying to redeem ourselves. Frankly, this is why we're going back. We need that heartbreak still sits heavy in my chest, and I'm hoping to expunge that demon, if that's the right word. I'm looking to get rid of that demon in my chest tomorrow. So I hope that can happen. We'll see. I'm excited either way. I think for me, going through the injury report first. So teams are both pretty healthy. It's week 2. Obviously, we have CJ Baxter with the torn ACL on the Texas side, and then Rod Moore, Michigan safety, with a torn ACL on their side. So a big loss for both teams, no doubt. But luckily, the rosters are pretty healthy. Um, X factors, I think, as Jose alluded to, Michigan's defensive line is it's big, it's tough, it's mean, it's experienced. And experience, I think, is the key word. Because you're looking at a Texas offensive line that has 125 starts or 126 starts combined between the 5 of them. So this is a super experienced line. You have 2 guys that are in their 3rd year starting, 2 guys that are in their 2nd year starting, and then 1 first-year starter. So, for me, can Michigan's big 2 in Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, can they collapse the inside of that pocket? Can they get in Quinn Ewers' face and also stop the run? And then on the Texas side, obviously losing Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy last year, can they stuff up Michigan's run game? I think you've kind of seen it flip for both teams, whereas last year Michigan had a ton of bodies in the D line room where you were seeing Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant only play like 30 snaps a game. And so they were always fresh. And then the Texas side, you had the two mountains in the middle that were taking, 70-80% of the snaps. And so it's kind of flipped this year where Texas is a little more by committee than they were last year. So can those bodies stuff the Michigan run, make Davis Warren pass? And then, yeah, back to the Michigan side. Can they get pressure on Quinn Ewers? Can they make Texas a non-play action team? Because we know Steve Sarkisian loves the play action game. And if you take that away and you take the run game away, Texas potentially is a much different team.
I'll be honest. I want them to be that different team. I want them to air it out. I mean, Michigan, obviously they're used to playing in the Big Ten. They're used to a lot of running. They're used to, I mean, essentially you could say smash mouth or just, I mean, heavily moving bodies. It's physical. I want them to come in there with just an air attack. They have the talent to do it. In Michigan, I just don't think that they'll see it coming. I know it's definitely out of their character, but I think that it would come in there with the new Texas, the SEC, just powerhouse fast team.
Would
I think
love
if
to
they can
see
come in
that.
with that, everybody's just gonna be like, "Who is
Yeah, I
this?"
would love to see Quinn Ewers just drop back and dice it up. Obviously, Michigan's got a great secondary, but it would be incredible for Steve Sarkisian to come in and say, "Nah, screw the run game. We're just gonna
Right.
chop it up. We're gonna get it out to Isaiah Bond. We're gonna get it to Silas Bolden. We're gonna get it to Ryan Wingo. And we're just gonna let our playmakers go to work."
And
I
with
don't
the
think
rich
it'll happen.
history of Michigan
And I,
DBs, with the rich history that they have
I would
in
hope
Ann
I would
Arbor
hope
with
we
those
don't we
DBs,
don't
Garrett.
take away from the run game though, because I think Jaden Blue looks honestly great. I think obviously the Baxter was just such a huge loss, and I think that that put a lot of fear in a lot of Longhorn fans' heart, like at the start of the season. But after watching Jaden for the first game, I thought he looked great. Honestly, he's dicing up angles, dicing up ankles. That first game, he really can move. He's swift. He's elusive. I really think that, regardless of if they, if they, I hope they wouldn't choose to just strictly go over the air, but I think they can still do some damage on the run game. I really do.
Yeah. Derek, who are your big X factors for the game? I know we've talked about some units in the offensive defensive line, but do you have any specific players that you're looking at in this matchup? I know for me, I'm looking on each side of the ball. So Jarrett Gibson, the freshman running back for Texas, is going to be a big one. He's kind of more of your every down back where, you see Quintravion Wisner, you see Jaden Blue, a lot of speed, but he's their more every down back. And then on the defensive side, Anthony Hill. So let's not forget, we do have the coach to player communication, and Anthony Hill is going to wear that for the Texas defense. And Michigan is going to run two quarterbacks, Davis Warren and Alex Orji. And so I think it's going to be really key that when they're switching back and forth between those two different types of offenses, that Anthony Hill is locked in, making sure he's got his calls, making sure the defense is where it needs to be. On the Michigan side, for me, it's Colson Loveland. He's the best player on the offense. He's the only big time pass catcher on their team. They don't have a lot of big play wide receivers. So Colson Loveland for Michigan is going to be the X factor, I think, in most people's minds. And then on the defense, I think you can toss up to one of the two defensive linemen. Actually, I'll give it to our good friend, Mr. Will Johnson, the cornerback,
You know,
because
mentioned
he's
Donovan Edwards.
not as the X factor. He's a known entity. Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullins are going to get the ball regardless. But Will Johnson on
Why is
defense.
it
I think
why
you
is
can't
it that
count
we're
on
gonna have
Donovan
the
Edwards. I think you got to give him the respect where respect is due, and I think that he's going to be someone to watch out for. You got to lock him down. You got to make sure that he's got no avenues to run, and that's the problem. Though, is he can run. He can run wherever he wants. That's the one that I was watching out for before this game. It's like we need to make sure that that guy
Yeah, I
feels
think
like he cannot run.
the only reason I don't put him there is because I think Michigan's going to run regardless, and so like what's going to win them the game if they need to score points is going to be throwing the ball, and
Okay.
Colson Loveland has got to do something to help Davis Warren out. So Derek, I know you had something.
I mean, I guess to finish this, then I can go into my question. I'm looking at this game as defense is going to take care of itself. I think this game is going to be won or lost on the Texas offensive line. I don't fear the Michigan offense. I don't think it's there. I don't think it's what it was. Defense, I think is there. So it's just going to be how much can you control the game, time of possession, and how much can that line manipulate to what we want to do based off of a run block and or a pass block. So it's going to come down to the offensive line. That's going to be my biggest thing. Sticking with the offense, my question is, I know you'd mentioned, it being new this year and making sure we had the right calls in there with the coaching staff and Hill. So what's the technology you're talking about?
So essentially, with the whole sign stealing scandal last year that we're all very aware
Oh, the
of,
Stallions rule.
the Connor Stallions rule. Yeah, we'll call it the Connor Stallions
Yeah, the
rule.
Michigan cheaters.
Um, Similar to the NFL, coordinators can now have contact with one player on offense and one player on defense down to 15 seconds left on the play clock. So you're not looking at signals anymore. You still can, but there is that in helmet communication to help mitigate that.
I knew the answer. I wanted to dig.
Connor Stallions. was there on the moon landing, if you didn't know. Connor
So
Stallion
actually,
is everywhere.
the one thing I did not know was I did not know that it was up to 15 seconds. So that's actually kind of interesting how, I mean, but it makes sense. I mean, you got to relay the message on out of there. But yeah, we'll actually have to save our notes probably on the Connor Stallions documentary
For another
for
episode?
another time because yeah, I think we have a lot on that because that was just like his sign, I guess, deciphering. I think that was a little bit deceiving as to what was maybe going on.
Yeah,
And
honestly, we
as
might
an
do,
adult,
like,
we could
maybe a
talk about it.
midweek short episode on that. If anybody wants to listen, maybe we'll do something like that, 'cause, yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about on that topic, and it's quite entertaining.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, honestly, before we kind of move on, I guess, from this, because I know we have other more important kind of critical things that people probably care about versus our opinions on a Netflix documentary. But congratulations to Connor Stallions because he is the Mumford football interim head coach. Obviously, we know Connor's everywhere, but he is definitely in Mumford calling the shots. So, an unfortunate situation for Mumford, but definitely looking good for Connor there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that documentary to come out next year. The Connor
Just wait for the
Stallions
state championship.
Mumford documentary
They win
after
states,
they win
dude.
the
There's
state
no way that
championship.
they're 2 weeks into the season, they're winning states this year, and those kids know what color socks the other team's wearing before they even show
Can
up.
you put money on high school sports in Michigan? Can you bet
I'm sure
on
there's a right bookie.
alright, maybe we'll
Not on
find him here in
FanDuel,
Ann
but I'm
Arbor.
sure there's a guy in a basement in Detroit.
We'll try to find him here. We'll wrap up the college football stuff. The one thing I wanted to check in on real quick. I know last week we talked about the Oklahoma State QR code situation. And actually on Sunday, about 3 or 4 hours after we released this show, it came out that the NCAA is actually not allowing Oklahoma State to have the QR codes on their helmet, saying that it is essentially a form of advertising, and advertising is not allowed on college football helmets. So kind of a bummer there, but kind of what we alluded to in the episode. Like, at what point is the NCAA going to step in and kind of regulate this? And we wondered, like, that was a pretty bold one that people hadn't done yet. And so it didn't surprise me, but it did surprise me that it happened 3 hours after we put the damn show out last week. So
Can I ask you a
it is what it
question
is.
on that?
Yeah.
So, when they go through and they say it's a form of advertising, right?
Mhm.
At what point is a QR code more significant in advertising versus the school's logo that they're recognized by and notable? Right? I mean, that's their like when you go through and you look at NIL, like that's what the school gets paid off of. That's what their merch sells. I mean, that's so how's their logo on there, but you can't have a QR code.
Because it's not a business. But
School's a
speaking of
business.
businesses and advertisements, one
School's a business.
I want to let you know that this podcast is a proud partner of Synergy Coffee Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, black coffee is back. I know it's 2024 and we're all obsessed with our lattes, oat milks, and pumpkin spice, but rest assured there is something out there that is a lot easier on your taste buds, stomach, and most importantly, your wallet. This show is a proud partner with Synergy Coffee Chicago, an up and coming company right here in my backyard. Synergy is proud to produce small batch coffees from all around the world, infusing them with unique flavors and roasting them fresh every week. I personally am hooked on the Dark Knight, which is sourced from Mexico. It boasts a rich flavor with notes of cinnamon, abuelita, and vanilla, and it always hits the spot. I brew it up in my Chemex every weekend when I'm home, and I sip on it all day long. Thank you for the message, Synergy Coffee. We are back, and we are talking about Oklahoma State. And now Ollie Gordon is not going to have any way to pay for his DUI charges. So that is unfortunate. I don't know if you guys have anything else to sound off on that, but I did want to let the crowd know that that did get reversed.
Wait, he didn't get a DUI?
No, he did get a DUI. The QR codes got reversed. The DUI did
Oh,
not
okay,
get
okay,
Oh,
okay.
reversed.
damn, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about you
I
I could
mean,
get reversed. Huh?
Yeah, he gave the a green reverse Uno card to the judge and
Actually,
but Ollie Gordon did not in fact run the ball 50 times. Eric, do you have a stat line?
yeah. So he actually, I mean, he did pretty well, right? I mean, we're looking at an average of 3.9 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. On 27 carries, we had 104 yards, and he had 4 receptions with a receiving touchdown as well. So 42 yards on that with 1 receiving touchdown. He had a game, so a little warm up game. I think what they're doing is they're actually just building stepping stones. So they're over halfway there, and we'll see him at 50 probably this week.
Enough with the college football talk. I know the NFL season kicked off last night with a 27-20 victory by the Kansas City Chiefs in a conference championship rematch of last year with the Baltimore Ravens. If you didn't see the game, crazy ending. Baltimore had a touchdown to potentially win the game. And Isaiah Likely, the Baltimore tight end, if he had a half size smaller cleat or if he would have clipped his toenails that week, Baltimore probably wins that game. But a great game nonetheless. I know Jose mentioned a couple touchdown by Texas alum Xavier Worthy. So that was awesome to see there. But Derek, we'll start with you. What game are you looking at this weekend?
Obviously, this is a impartial answer there. I mean, it's somewhat prime time. 4:25 coming on Sunday. We have the Cowboys visiting the Browns. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a tight game. What I will tell you is I'm nervous who shows up to play under center. I say that in the fact, and I don't say this. I mean, I guess I say it in a grieving and a sad way there, but Deshaun Watson's his father did pass away. I do believe today when we're filming this. So definitely, feel for him in that. And it's never good when you have a death in the family, especially like an immediate family member and someone that means so much. But does that mean Deshaun plays? I mean, who shows up, right? So are we gonna have Winston? Or are we gonna have a distracted Deshaun Watson? I mean, on the more kind of serious and straight side of things, he hasn't shown up and been the same Deshaun he was in Houston. So not to be critical, but to be straightforward with you, is this just another thing of when he has an off game? It's just another excuse. So we'll see who shows up under center. But with that news, and I'm seeing maybe a 28-21. I'm holding the Cleveland defense to helping us win this game, but 28-21 Cleveland winning in Cleveland to start the year. But I do think it's going to be a little bit different of a team. Ezekiel's back, so there's going to be a little bit more of a threat there.
Zeke's old
Yeah,
and fat.
it'll be interesting. He's not old and bad. He's still a pretty good player.
Okay, you're just lying now.
I mean, we have Jerome Ford as a backup, buddy, or as our starter.
I don't even know who the hell that is.
So
I know who Jerome Bettis is. I know who
yeah,
Martha Ford is. I don't know who
well, Jerome Bettis is a little
Jerome
fat at this
Ford
point.
is.
Yeah, well, he's the starting back for the Cleveland Browns.
All right, fair enough.
All right, listener. Now for the reason that you're all tuned in, I'm sure. Lions versus LA Rams. I think we all know what's going to happen here. They're coming to Detroit and they're going to get steamrolled. Come on. I think we all can agree on this. All jokes aside, I am being very confident. I think that, Lions are going to open their season with a home opener. It's always a positive. And one, I think they earned it coming off of last season. Primetime football, LA Rams. Yeah, they do have some weapons, but it's really more about, I would say, the history that's behind it. Matt Stafford's coming back to Detroit again. If I may remind you, he came last season, and guess what happened? He got the doors shut on him. He is not welcome in Detroit anymore. Jared Goff, you are good enough. I repeat, you are good enough. No, but I think that we have so many weapons. We have a full offseason of practice, of training, everyone getting better. Everyone looks so well for Detroit. I am so excited for this game. I think it's going to be a good game. And I think Detroit is going to come out on top.
All right, I'm gonna go with the boring take. The two games I'm most excited to watch, and not really excited to watch, more because I think there's gonna be a lot to learn from them. So the first one is the Cardinals and the Bills. So obviously Kyler is healthy this year. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. They're probably gonna, win less than 5 games, but we'll see where they're at. And then the other end, the bigger question mark is, what are the Bills gonna be this year? Obviously, they lost Stephon Diggs. Matt Milano's out with an injury. Lost an offensive lineman or two. So just a lot of new parts and moving parts. And we've seen, they hit the mountaintop a couple of years ago and they've been good. They've got the conference championship since, but I don't know. So I'm really interested to see what Buffalo Bills team comes out. Go ahead, Derek. Say what you want.
So when you look at talent, right, and you look at quarterback talent from Mahomes and you look at quarterback talent from Josh Allen,
Mhm.
right? I mean, and you look at the weapons that both of them got this year. The way that I'm gonna say that their season is gonna go early on is how well they can get Keon Coleman involved in their
For
offense.
sure.
I mean, you saw that they did not hesitate last night getting Xavier Worthy involved.
Yep.
So early on in their success, because teams aren't gonna know how to scout them, they're not gonna know necessarily how they're gonna use them. I mean, nobody saw that Worthy touchdown coming based off of a handoff, especially first. I mean, everybody saw that clip coming out of training camp where he was just getting bodied, he was getting pushed around, he's not gonna beat a press. And so the Chiefs said, "Okay, cool, watch." And, I mean, there was no press there. He's coming out of the backfield, ball in hand, hot with a blocker ahead of him. So, obviously, Coleman's a completely different player, but it's all in how you get these guys integrated early on. So they're great quarterbacks, there's great offenses, and there's great mind behind it. So I don't necessarily know if they're gonna miss too much just based off of how strong of a player that Coleman is.
Yeah, he's one that I'm very interested to see. And then Dalton Kincaid, second year, I think, second year tight end out of Utah, had some massive stats there, was really awesome. And they have Dawson Knox as well. So we're interested to see how Josh Allen gets them both involved. The other one I'm excited to see is the Jets and the 49ers. So obviously, is Aaron Rodgers fully healthy? I know there's still some people saying that he's looking a little ginger around camp. Still spending a lot of time on that Achilles. So is he as good as advertised? They upgraded the offensive line, but is it good enough? Is Brees Hall the number one, number two running back in the NFL like a lot of people think he is? There's just a lot of questions, a ton of talent, but also a ton of questions with that team. And then, obviously heard a lot of rumors in camp. Brock Purdy throwing a lot of interceptions in camp. It is what it is. People throw interceptions in camp. I'm not putting too much stock in it, but obviously Brock Purdy is very polarizing as well with people that think he is the next Tom Brady, and then there's people that think he should be holding Colin Kaepernick's jockstrap. So like I don't know. I don't know what we're doing
I
here,
think
but
it's
that's an interesting one to me as well.
I think camp's tough to say. I mean, when you go through and you reflect on like past times of even being a student athlete, right? Like who knew you better than your own defense, right? They knew your play you were going to run. They knew the routes. They're going to know I mean, just kind of physical like cues and giveaways that you're going to do to one another on the field that other teams just don't see day in and day out. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. I get it. They're professional athletes. It's maybe not as common, but I just reflecting back, I mean, that's why normally you're not as successful against a defense that you see every single day because they know what's going to happen. So I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it. We've seen that kid now on the field in primetime games. I'm not buying that we're seeing a downfall of Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I like Brock Purdy as well. I think he's somewhere in the middle. I'm not saying he's a terrible quarterback and needs to get benched, but I'm also not ready to say that he's elite like some people might think. I think he's in that, like probably 8 to 15 range for quarterbacks. I think he's above average, but it's really hard to judge in the Kyle Shanahan system
May
because
I
he's
interrupt here?
no, you can't.
Okay, well, I'm going to.
Okay.
So no, it's just because I heard you saying that. So I understand what you're saying. Maybe not elite just yet. Maybe not. But what does that mean exactly? How about let's put a salary range on it. What's his salary? As a starting QB for the 49ers, what do you got?
Eight,
Where should he be?
what do I think he should be making?
Yeah. Because well, are we not all? I think we're all under the assumption that he's coming off of his
What
season
is
where he was
what is
making like
Jared Goff?
900 or something.
What is Jared Goff?
He just got a standout offer. I think it's probably like somewhere
He should make
40 million a year. I think he's locked down for 40 million for 3-4 years or something.
he should make $1 million more than Jared Goff
All right.
does.
Well, this guy obviously doesn't know anything about sports and things like that. So let's go ahead and move on.
I think what does Kirk Cousins make? I think Kirk Cousins is a good comparable.
You're talking about a veteran who's been in the league for what, 13, 14, 15 years.
But I'm just saying if that's value, if that's the value you're going off of, right? If you're giving
No,
me
I'm just saying like he's what, he's year 2, year 3, I forget, something like that.
his second full year, third year in the league, yeah. So I think skill wise, he's probably a $30 to $35 million quarterback, no doubt. He's not
Okay.
an 800K
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's just I just wanted to see that jump from where everyone I think knows where he's at right now, like that 900K salary mark or whatever. Where is he jumping to next? What should it be?
I mean, you can't even get after that though, because I mean, if you're going to go through and you're going to compare quarterback marks, I mean, or we're going to ignore Trevor Lawrence and that he's making Mahomes money. I mean,
the highest paid quarterback in the NFL is always just the next quarterback that gets paid, right? Next year, Dak Prescott's gonna be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Does anybody think he's the best quarterback in the NFL? Maybe
I don't
Jerry
think Dak
Jones.
Prescott's on the Cowboys next year.
There's no money. Then Micah Parsons isn't on the Cowboys if Dak Prescott is.
No, I don't think Dak's on the Cowboys.
Oh, I thought you said
I
you
think he's
think
gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
No,
Dak's gone. He's gonna
he's
go
gone.
make
Yeah, he ain't on the
$700 billion to go
on a
be
darkness retreat with Aaron Rodgers.
to go do ayahuasca with Aaron Rodgers. Probably.
Or be Jordan Love's
I think New York would
backup.
be a good fit for him though. So we'll see.
I don't know. They're gonna get a draft. They're gonna get a draft pick. Anyway, what we can do. I mean, we're straying, so we can kick it over if we want on over to what are we doing. So I can pose this question to actually the both of you. So what I'm
Okay.
gonna do is I have a little thing. Hold on, let me find this because I had to think about this and I had to grab some stats for it. So in the what are we doing? I guess it's almost like a team builder edition, right? It was fantasy draft week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a scenario and I want you to treat this like fantasy where you pick your line and your key players. So instead of picking a defense, you're just going to pick your key players, right? So you're in the fourth quarter. We are under a 2-minute warning. So you have one timeout,
Okay.
minute 30 left in it on your 15-yard line.
Okay.
You have to score a touchdown. You're down 6. So touchdown ties it, field goal. After that, we'll win the game.
Okay.
Here's the kicker.
Okay.
The defense you're playing is 2011 Bama with Hightower, Mosley. I mean, they had lost one game in overtime to LSU 9-6.
Okay. So it has to be college players.
It from the last, I will say the last, I mean, I'll give you 20, since this is 2011. I mean, we can go 2010 back. So give you roughly 15 years.
Can I just
So
say,
you got to
can
pick
I
your,
just say
your
2019
line.
LSU?
You're going to pick Joe Burrow's LSU.
Do I have to pick individual players or can I pick a team?
The goal was, it was going to be like, hey, pick your line that you want and then go through, pick your quarterback, your running back,
Okay.
and your other kind
So
of weapons around
we're
it.
down by 6.
It's almost like yep, go ahead.
Down by 6. A minute and a half left in the game. Got to go 85 yards against 2011 Alabama. Who do I want in the last 15 years?
One timeout.
One
So you
timeout.
need clock management.
I'm taking Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Who would you rather have a quarterback?
Any time frame?
Since 2010.
15.
Ah, you.
Yeah.
Vince
I know
Young.
he was going to go Vince,
Young,
wasn't he?
Young.
He was
I
going
know.
Vince, huh?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he was. That's why I cut it off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Marcus Mariota or Deshaun Watson at Clemson. I think I like Deshaun. He got it across the finish line. He won.
You're going to ignore Manziel?
Manziel's a turd.
Wasn't there like a prime like 2012
Baker?
Tim Tebow or something like that?
Tim Tebow was dead by 2012. Tim Tebow was playing baseball in 2012, my guy. Or he was a
so
tight
you're not
end.
even going to look at a pocket passer stepping out, Baker?
I do like that. I would say, okay, Mariota,
I was gonna
Baker,
say, you're a-
or Deshaun.
Money?
I'm not taking Money Manziel. That guy's a turd. I'm going Deshaun Watson. At receiver, I'm taking 2019 LSU. I'm taking Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson with Terrence Marshall, I believe, being their third. No question. Give me Dalton Kincaid from Utah as my tight end. Give me 2022 University of Michigan offensive line. And give me, who do I want as a running back? Give me Bijan Robinson, dude. Give me Bijan. That's my lineup. Deshaun, Bijan, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Michigan offensive line. That's it.
All right, well,
I think there's a better QB.
are we going to ask
There's a
Jose this
QB out
question, or do you
there.
just want to keep it between us?
Jose's in on it. He doesn't agree with me, except for Bijan. Who would you change on that?
No. I agree with your running back. I agree with your wide receivers. I think that there's a better QB out there. And I'm trying to think.
There's a better QB?
Like one that can give you like the run pass option.
Deshaun Watson does.
But like in the past, between 2010 and now, I need to think.
Caleb Williams.
Trash.
Caleb Williams 2022.
Yeah, then I'll go paint my nails.
Negotiate your own contract.
First.
Relax. I'm sticking to it. Deshaun's my quarterback. He's dual threat. Everyone can do multiple things on that offense. That's it.
I might do 2019 Joe Burrow.
Dude, that's what I originally said, though, is just take the LSU 2019. You have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You have all those receivers. You have Randy Moss's son at tight end, Thaddeus Moss. Like, their entire offense went in the first 2 rounds in the next year or two. So just take that team.
Okay. Yeah, we can post that question up. I mean,
Boom.
we didn't get a lot of great participation this last week, so we'll keep posting up there and we'll see what we can get to see your guys' kind of reactions and what you guys would choose.
You want to bang it out with hot
other than-
takes?
Do I want to start off with hot takes? Probably not.
Yeah.
No. But I'll follow it.
You got a hot
I say
take
that
to
the
start
fact
off?
that
I actually do.
start with Jose.
I'm glad you asked.
All right, Jose's got a hot take. Give it to me.
All right,
he's
hot
in waiting
take
for this.
this season. And we're starting over.
No more whiskey for Jose tonight.
All right, hot take. This season, NFL, Xavier Worthy will be the rookie of the year. I guarantee it. I actually do that. I guarantee this.
My guy, he's drinking.
Watch this one game.
He's drinking so much Kool-Aid.
He watches one game. It was like,
No,
gotta be the best.
this will
Gotta be
happen.
the best.
I think that he's got the Chiefs. First of all, Chiefs starting lineup behind him. Past that, the Chiefs fandom base, whatever even that means. But I think that he's going to be a rock star. I think he's going to be. He should have been on my fantasy team, and one past that, he should have been on everyone's fantasy team. I think that he's going to be a rock star
Well, he
this
can't.
year.
He's only one person, so he can only be on one person's team.
Well, everyone that was in fantasy should have drafted
Yeah, but I think
him. He's the fastest man in the league. Might I remind you, I believe it was a 4.21 40-yard dash. Fastest man in the league right now and ever at the time of this recording. And he will be rookie of the year. Hot take. Don't at me.
Oh, we're dropping your at.
Yeah, we're
Probably
definitely
not.
dropping his name in there. That's spicy.
Who picked him up?
For our league,
Yeah, who drafted him?
I got
him, I got him.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
big old
So
Brady's.
you want to talk about he should be on everyone's league? He didn't even break 90%.
He took X from me.
He's not even on 90% rostered in fantasy football.
Yeah, that's the best part of the hot take.
All right. That's a fair hot take. That's a big one from
You just said
Jose.
it should be on everyone's team. Yeah, okay.
That's a
fair.
big hot take. Alrighty. I'm gonna go with a much less spicy hot take
Yeah, it doesn't
This-
surprise me.
this week. Last week I went for a 15-pointer.
He's just soft.
So I'm
Good.
just gonna. I don't want to do all long run hot takes. I'm gonna go this week. Iowa State over Iowa. I'll take the whatever 2 points, 3 points. Iowa State will beat Iowa. Not if, just how and by how much. Kirk Ferentz, you can't get fired because nobody will ever fire you at Iowa, but just know you're gonna get beat down by Matt Campbell and those psychopaths in Ames, Iowa. So, psychopaths. Ames, Iowa. That's what I got. What about you, Mr. Martin?
It's a tough one. It's more of a wish than a hot take, if you will. I think if Jamar Chase sits out, I think the Bengals are going to struggle a little bit.
That's not a hot take. That's just truth.
Yeah, but they play the Patriots, so they shouldn't. So that's the problem.
I think
is
they're
it's a
going to
week
lose to
one-
the Patriots without Jamar Chase.
I don't say they lose. I think they struggle. I think it's a lot closer ball game than what it should be.
All right, Derek has the Bengals
Fighting
down to
within-
lose without Jamar Chase. Gotcha.
I didn't say to lose. I have it within a touchdown.
All right. That's fair enough. Well, thank you everybody for joining another episode of the Coffee and Cups podcast. We really appreciate you coming out and supporting us. Make sure to go on synergycoffeechicago.com. Use the code DARKNECTAR24 to get 35% off your next order with Justin. And don't forget, he's got Kite Runner over there, which is a weekly brew. Last week's was 2 separate beans from Mexico with caramel and dark espresso notes. It was great. It was smooth, and I'm looking forward to the next batch coming. Before we leave, I'm gonna ask Jose a question. So you've gone to baseball games before, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like there's beer vendors, and they go up and down, and they're hollering for beer. They want you to buy beer, right?
Okay.
I want you to give me your beer call if you were a beer vendor at the Texas Michigan game tomorrow.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Um,
So whenever you're ready.
all right, give me a couple of seconds. Hey. Come get your beer, ice cold beers, ice cold bullets, ice cold bullets.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
We'll
not
see
that.
you next week.
Tune in next Sunday for another show and a cup of Joe.